Hello, GirlConners. My name is Emma, and I'm one of the co-directors this year. Thank you for your enthusiasm and spirit these past 2 days. Now, welcome to our virtual closing ceremony. Today, you will be hearing from our closing keynote speaker and our GirlCon team with the final message. Without further ado, let me introduce our keynote speaker, Anushka Joshi. Anushka Joshi is the founder of Gen Z, a next generation media company dedicated to amplifying youth perspectives and reimagining media as a tool for activism and social impact. Anushka is also the founder of Friend of a Friend, a dating app that helps people form intentional connections through mutual networks rather than swiping, emphasizing trust and community. Named to Forbes 30 Under 30 for Media in 2024 and featured on Business Insider, she also serves as an advisory board member for Now This, a progressive media platform that produces socially conscious news and storytelling for younger audiences across platforms such as TikTok and Instagram. As an early-stage startup operator and advisor, she creates through the lens of designing culture for social change and exploring how life online shapes life offline. Most recently, she is a content strategy and operations consultant at Squared Circles, a venture studio company that intersects capital, brand, operations, and talent. In her keynote, which we'll hear very shortly, she will explore the theme of rewriting the future, how you can enact change wherever you are, and the tools to help you get there. Thank you so much for coming in today, Anushka. Now, I'll hand it off to her to take it away.
Emma, thank you so much. And can everyone see me? Okay, great. Thank you so much for that very warm introduction. And thank you to all of the GirlCon team for putting this together and for everyone in the audience who is watching. I see you, I hear you, I feel you. I would have been in your shoes, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today. In fact, when I was putting this together, I began thinking about what would my younger self want to hear based on where I am today. So I'm excited to have that conversation with you. So as you know, my name's Anushka Joshi, and I am the founder of Gen Z, a next-gen media company for young people rewriting the future. And today I'm going to talk to you about how to rewrite the future for the world and for yourself and what story and narrative means along the way. Next slide. So before we begin, I'm just going to set the scene and tell you about my early passion for designing media for social change. And that is, now it's designing culture for social change, but that was the big theme. And it's been the thread throughout everything. So next slide. So I'm going to give you another introduction. This is me as well, 25 years ago, perhaps. And my journey with Gen Z started way before even I was in college or I was in high school and before it became a real thing. Growing up, I had aspirations of becoming the next editor-in-chief of a publication like Vogue. And perhaps it's my lucky day because it looks like Anna Wintour is stepping down. And this dream felt really out of reach for a couple of reasons, which I will get into soon. But I had this love for storytelling when I was in preschool. I would get up on the stage of our fireplace at home and I would do dances for everyone. I would pretend to write books, but I was really just copying other books into my notebook. I would turn books into plays. I would orchestrate my friends to become the actors in them in elementary school. In middle school, I started a YouTube channel and I would make music videos. In high school, I had this passion for, fashion, and I began to put together my own fashion books. And then in college is when I started Gen Z, and it's been around for the last 7 years, but there's been that thread throughout my entire life. And so next slide, please. The question that I want to ask you is, what is the first thing that you fell in love with? And what was that first dream you had and that felt scary and out of reach? I ask this because I often find that the first thing that we really fall in love with is the first thing that kind of remains true in this thread. So I don't know if you have a notebook in front of you. I should have invited you to do so, but either take a moment to think about it. What is that thing deep down that you really want, that you're afraid to share with people, or that you feels out of reach for you? Or that thing that you're just so absolutely in love with, and hang on to that. Next slide. So I had this big dream, right? I knew that I had this passion for storytelling. I felt so influenced by the magazines, the movies, the advertisement, things that I was consuming. And I also knew that I just felt torn between two worlds. I grew up in Palo Alto, the Bay Area, if you're familiar. It's the headquarters of Google, Apple, Tesla. Nearly every tech company was born from there. And I didn't know how to say, I want to work in media and I also want to help people. I remember one of my family friends or aunts was like, maybe you should be a social worker if you want to help people. But I knew that I wanted to blend creativity and culture and change into one. And it ended up being possible, but it didn't feel possible then. On this hand side, it's my left, we have a picture of Zendaya and the cover of Vogue. And the irony is that I mentioned I grew up consuming all of these stories and feeling so immersed by them and feeling so inspired by them. And even though she's on the cover, I didn't see a lot of young brown women represented in film and television or in media or pre-social media. I grew up with social media too, but it was kind of advertisements that gave us this toxic view of who we were supposed to be, how we're supposed to show up in the world. And I knew that I wanted to have a hand in shaping that. I was so aware of how these stories were impacting me, and I knew they were impacting other people, which brought me to, I didn't have the words to say it yet, designing media for social change. And so between not knowing that I could have this impact in culture and media and not feeling myself represented, to growing up in the Bay Area and not having people to look up to in these creative industries, I felt like this dream was so out of reach. And then you see me in the middle. This is like one of the fashion books, a lookbook I made when I was in high school. But I was always creating in the background and just trying to find ways to express myself authentically. Next slide. And so, as I just explained, my limiting beliefs, I want you to take a minute of where you are now, and for that dream that might feel too big for you to even conceive of or say out loud right now, what's limiting you there? What is the factor that is holding you back? Is it you don't have the people? It feels like it's too big, or it feels like it doesn't exist yet? Just that you can't do it. You can do it, but just sit with that for a minute and write it down, because it's not real. Next slide. So again, part of this theme was that I didn't have the people around me to make these dreams come true. And I attended USC, University of Southern California, for undergrad, and I studied communication. And on my first day there, before classes even started, I was speaking to a professor, orientation, and they told me about this class called Designing Media for Social Change. And honestly, looking back now, it's actually so serendipitous, but within arriving to the doors of my college campus, I had finally found the words for what I wanted to pursue, and something that I still kind of am guided by today, 8 years later. And so your people are out there. The communities that you're looking for are out there, and you will find your place and you will find your people, and the environments that nourish you and that are nourishing these ideas that are really important in the world. My journey at USC was incredible. If you are in high school and you're just feeling like, I can't wait to find my people, or I can't wait to study the thing that I actually care about, like, it is on the other side and it is there. So I was a very good student, and I ended up making Annenberg, the School of Communication, one of the most robust communities for me in college. It's where I met some of my best friends. It's ultimately where Gen Z was born out of. And it kept going and going. And it was nourishing for me, and it helped me connect directly with people who shared similar passions with me. So from student to leader, all the way to helping facilitate community forums at school, I really found my place there, and it's a reminder that you will find the words, the tools, and community for what you're trying to do as well. Next slide, please. And so on that note, I just want to remind you that there is a space for you. And if you feel like there's an area out there, like I wanted to, be involved in this media world that I felt so far apart from, this world of culture and this world of change, just think about if there's an area that you want to explore and you can't find it yet, you can find it and create it, and where does that already exist? So this is an invitation for you to think about, what is that first step I can do to find those people? What is something that I can put out there in the world with no pressure, but use it as I think the internet is really interesting for this right now. If you can get past all of the like noise on LinkedIn or noise on Instagram about, I just find it to be kind of a loud place. You can really use social media as a tool to magnetize the types of people that you want to surround yourself with. And I think most of my projects have come from posting on my Instagram story and saying, hey, who wants to do this with me? And so as soon as you put that call out to the world, you will find your people, and there's a space for you. And so I invite you to take a minute to think about, what is one thing I can do to make that happen? Next slide. So now the Gen Zine story. It went from a class project to this global media community. It started, as I mentioned, with this passion of designing media for social change, of this belief that I could be the next editor-in-chief of American Vogue and make it reinvent it to regard social change, to be representative, to be inclusive, to basically be what I needed when I was growing up. And I took this course called Designing Media for Social Change. I created a final capstone project, which was an article, which was a zine, printed zine with 5 articles maybe, with 2 of my classmates. And I remember saying to my professor, hey, I'm going to keep doing this. And she was like, everyone says that they're going to keep doing it. And I'm like, no, watch me, I really am. And here I am, 7 years later, and it still exists. And it grew from that one class project to having hundreds of writers from around the world, to becoming a Forbes 30 under 30 media honoree, to being invited to these advisory boards for Now This, to being featured in really cool campaigns, to traveling the world to make documentaries, to even having something that exists without me being directly involved. It was this huge journey to creating a global media company. Next slide, please. But I just want to remind you that the journey unfolded over the course of 7 years. And I know sometimes it's easy to look at these stories from the outside and think, oh my goodness, where do I even begin? Sometimes I get intimidated too when I'm trying to start a new project, and I'm like, how will it ever get to being this big thing again? And it's like, no, it took me 7 years. It took me 4 years in college. It took me a lot of passion, a lot of drive, a lot of conviction, and this relentless desire to keep going. Not because I felt like I wanted something on the outside, although sometimes I did, but because if you have that belief in something, then it will guide you. So yes, it started with this one print zine, and then it became another print zine, and then it became starting an Instagram a year later, and then it became inviting my friends to write for it, and then it was starting a website, and then it was another zine, and it kept going until it became a club my senior year. And it still took many years for it to scale ultimately to 20 campus chapters, to get the opportunities to work with companies like Converse and Instagram, and to travel and to receive grants, and to keep going. So this is just a reminder that, yes, things look really cool and big from the outside, but it also is a really, really long journey, and it should be fueled by passion and the vision that you have. and having some patience and acceptance for the journey as well. Next slide, please. So with that, when you think of your dream and its biggest form of that, what is one step that you can take to get there? I know I mentioned finding your people. How do you do that through a community? But what is something that you're so interested in that you just want to take the first step there? And Gen Z, it looks like kind of this capstone project and moment in my life, but I just have to say I've been creating and I've been doing things my whole entire life. And I think even now I'm very pro just do it and edit it later and just post the things. I think my motto right now is always be launching. And there's this, I don't want to say fear-based mindset sometimes, but we're afraid of putting ourselves out there because we're afraid that people are going to think that it's not good enough, at least for me sometimes. But again, I'm like, hey, anything I start for the first time, I'm doing for the first time, and it will only get better from there. So kind of what we've gone over today is, what is that dream that you're afraid to say out loud or that feels big? And if you can say it out loud, then great. What are your limiting beliefs? How and where do you think you'll find your people? And it can be people who are like, my Annenberg friends are like my friends for life also. It had nothing to do with career. It had everything to do with shared passion. So where are you going to find people who share the same passion as you? I think this is a great audience for it. And then what is that first step you can take towards action whenever you're ready? And what's holding you back? So next slide, please. So yes, I've been on this 7-year journey. And again, I was living the dream. I was getting the press coverage that I thought was so cool when I was younger. I was being invited to join these boards, which is something that I, kind of fantasized about. I was partnering with these companies like Instagram. I was traveling and making documentaries. I was going across the world for these conferences. I was being featured in campaigns for brands that I loved, like Parade. And it was this, and I was the fruits of my labor were being recognized. And it was, from the outside, the most glamorous, romantic thing that I had wanted so badly. And these moments are all to be celebrated. And I don't mean this in a negative way, because they really are meant to be celebrated, but these are not the things that are going to define you. And I wish I could have told my younger self that. And I get the question a lot, how do I get Forbes 30 under 30? And I'm like, that's the wrong question to be asking. And I will answer that in a moment. But, have the big dreams, have the aspirations, have the awards that you want. Recognition is great. I think everyone deserves to get their flowers. But this is my reminder, is don't place your happiness in those things, because like everything, it's fleeting. Next slide, please. So, mountain ranges have peaks and valleys. And I say this because I climbed this mountain from the time that I was 18 to about 23, 24. And I'm 25. Wait, I'm 26 now. I'm 26 now. And there were these moments where my parents would tell me, they're very supportive, but they're like, please be careful. I feel like you're going to burn out really young. Newsflash, I'm quitting work in October and going to travel for a few months because I am indeed burnt out. But it is this idea that I now recognize that like life is this one long journey, and I will continue to have the dreams that I do, but I now approach it from a place of longevity for myself, and knowing that it's a marathon and not a sprint, and knowing that there's more to the world than these achievements and accolades and moments of creation. All still worthy, but you're going to have really, really high highs. And then there was a moment where I stepped away from Gen Z about 2.5 years ago now. And it's because I had been doing it since I was 18. I had been doing it for 5 or 6 years at that point. And I had outgrown it in some capacity. I was trying to emerge into this, adulthood myself. I felt like I was getting caught up in some of the youth spaces that I was just outgrowing as a person myself. And I felt really, really stuck for about 1.5 to 2 years, which is what led me to starting Friend of a Friend. And that's not where my true passion is, but it's these moments of, you know who you are, you know what you care about, you are following that passion, and at some point the winds will change and you will find yourself probably in a situation where I feel like I retracted back to my 14-year-old self in some ways sometimes, where I'm like, I no longer know what I'm passionate about or how to get there and how to kind of live my fullest self. So this is just to say that life is one long journey, and we are all young. You are much younger than me, it seems. And so you're going to keep having these peaks and valley moments, and it's not a matter of if they happen, but it's like, when they happen, how do you react and how do you act? And just know that the world is bigger than everything that we're talking about today. Next slide, please. So this is also what I would encourage you to do, is think about creating the world that you want to live in. You know, I came in to talk about the Gen Z journey of what it is to create something that you're really passionate about, and how to rewrite the future for the world at large, but also for yourself, right? How do you overcome your limiting beliefs? But another thing is what is this design of this bigger world that you are a part of? And for me, it's, am I spending time with my friends and my family? Am I in a mindset of joy and love? Not always, but I try. Can I consume and engage with the world, to travel, to see new places, to engage with the art of different artists, and to ultimately just like find this feeling of peace and serenity? I live in New York, and for now, and it's been a great 4 years here, but now I understand that, like, it's so easy to get stuck in the rat race, and what does enjoying every single day look like, and not just living for these shiny moments. So think about what it is that you want to live in. And I think 4 or 5 years ago, 10 years ago, honestly, I wanted to live in New York for so long. I was so excited for the moments of glamour. I was excited for the moments of meeting new people, trying new things. I still am, but in different ways. Kind of what you think of when you're going to the big city to pursue your dreams. And now I'm kind of creating the next version of that, and am perhaps on my way to embarking onto the next mountain. Next slide. So today I just want to, kind of level set and help remind you that rewriting your future, to me, is about using your voice and story and narrative to reprogram what it is that you believe and what it is that you want. And this concept started with me through Gen Z, because I believed that our voices have power to change the world around us. The stories we're telling can invite new narratives. It can change the political landscape. It can change how we feel on our school campuses. It can change how we feel about ourselves. And I still fully believe that. And a few years ago, I realized, well, if it can do it for this, then for these big worldly ideas, then it has to be able to do it for myself. So today I want to invite you to honor your dreams. What are the first things that you really fell in love with? And I know how scary it feels when your dreams feel bigger than you can hold and handle. Just write them down. Know that they exist. Nurture them. They're yours. They're probably what you're meant to do. The things that you loved earliest are who you are at your core, sometimes, I believe. Facing your limitations, we all have them. I have my limitations for my next set of adventures in this life. Write them down. They don't have to exist with as much strength as your dreams do, but also just being able to identify if you have these so-called limitations, and how can you just solve for them? Because if you see it, then it's just something to fix for. Finding your tribe, whether you are in high school and want to just start asking your friends if they care about the same things, or if you're in college and maybe you've gravitated towards a major that represents who you are a little bit more and the types of people that you want to be surrounded by. I am now graduating my 4 years after college, and I know I'm about to embark on finding the next version of my tribe. So it is a never-ending process. Knowing that it's one step at a time. Sometimes when you're looking at this cliff of your dreams, of people around you, of feeling like, how will I ever get started? Just take it one step at a time, and know that you should create and make and be guided from a place of passion and a place of wanting to create, not a place of needing to create. And I think it's easy to get lost in those words, but if you are a creative person like me, then you're going to want to create and do anyways, and do it for yourself and not for other people. If you're familiar with the music producer Rick Rubin, he always says he keeps his audience in mind last, because he's just creating for himself, and he knows that what he does for him will resonate for others. So more on that in a minute. And then also an invitation and a big reminder to just look at the big picture of life and the full view. And I think I would say I went to high school in less politically divisive, well, the 2016 election happened when I was in high school, but we lived in a time of, it was more peacetime. And so I think being able to dream in certain ways now feels like a luxury. Then I don't know how you feel today. But just take a look at the bigger picture and remember that if you are achievement oriented, which I'm sure you are if you are here, then know that success and achievement and accomplishment is just one photo frame of the larger picture of your life. And to think about what that means and what you really want to create and what you will enjoy doing every single day and who that's with and where that is. And it will change, but just remember that life is more than, your dreams are very important, but life is more than checking things off of a to-do list. And next slide, please. And I just want to leave you with even one step and one story will help someone else move closer to their purpose. And I've recently been thinking about this, and I'll share another personal anecdote. But I think that the most connected thing you can do for others is just show up fully authentically yourself. And there are moments where we live in connection with ourselves and feeling disconnected from ourselves. And I think my journey for Genzine is a moment and experience that shows how connected I was with myself and with my passion and what could be my calling. And as a result, I was able to share that with hundreds of young writers from around the world who are able to share their stories with thousands of people around the world and with new communities, and continuing to empower other people and tell really cool stories. And I stepped back from Genzine a couple years ago, but now it's run by some other very smart young folk. And there are times where I look at these stories and I'm like, wow, that is so cool that people are writing these things. And wow, I really needed to see that today. And I have to remind myself sometimes, like, had I not put that into the world, then I wouldn't be able to receive these stories again as a reader, and other people wouldn't as well. So I think living in alignment and in authenticity with yourself and being honest with what it is that you want to dream for and what you want to create, and taking initiative to create those spaces, not only for yourself, but for other people, is like one of the most generous things you can do for the world, and one of the most impactful things. I think following your dreams is one of the most impactful things that you can do. And so if you feel too scared to take that first step for yourself, just think about it as if you're taking that first step for those around you. Next slide, please. I just wanted to say thank you again for having me, and to the entire GirlCon team for putting this together. It was so well done. And If you want to learn more about Gen Zine, feel free to go to www.gen-zine.com or follow us at the Gen Zine on Instagram. And if you want to keep in touch with me, feel free to follow me at Anushka Joshi or DM me. And if you ever want to chat or have questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I'm so excited for all of you to go on your ways and see what you put into the world. And I just wish that everyone can follow their dreams so passionately, so freely, and do it with some loving and kind attitude and energy, because that's what the world needs more of. So step out of your way to step out into the world for others and rewrite your future. So thank you so much. I think you're muted. You're muted. You're muted. Oh, yeah. Okay, great.
Thank you, Anisha. Thank you for the incredible keynote. Thank you so much for coming today to share your knowledge and your intelligence with us. I think what really stuck with me was honing in on your dreams. I remember the first time I coded was when I was back in 5th grade, and I loved the problem-solving aspect of it. And then now, as an incoming college freshman, that is what I will be pursuing next year. So, yeah. That was amazing. I also really enjoyed hearing about the full view as well. I think that people often get enraptured by what goals they have inside. And so I feel that I'm a very goal-oriented person. And so I have these achievements that I hope to achieve one day. And so I think just taking a step back and finding that balance between life and my work is key. And so thank you so much for highlighting that.
Of course. And I even see that, like, an example of that was when I was in college my last year. I remember I would hole myself up into my room and I would be so grumpy with my roommates who are my best friends. And I just like wanted to work instead of enjoying our last year of college together. And it was during the pandemic. So I was like, what are we going to do? Sit on the couch? But it even is like, when I look back on that time, it's like the best times were sitting on our couch with each other. And yes, it led me to, it paid off in some ways. But at the same time, like, what you're really going to remember is who you're spending your days with and what those memories are, and everything else is just a fleeting moment. Not to be so deep.
But thank you so much for highlighting that. And for GirlConners listening, if you guys have any questions, please drop them in the chat and then Anushka will answer them. But I have a couple of questions for Anushka myself. So my first question for you is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I mean, I think in a roundabout way, a lot of that. And it would be to try not to lose sight of your inner voice. In a tangential personal tale, I think I've spent the last year and a half of my life kind of confused in this liminal space that I'll call it, where it's like, I'm not quite happy in the jobs or careers. I love what I do, consulting and all of the work. But, it's like, you're looking for these things on the outside to choose you. I'm like, what? Are my friends feeling perfect? Is my relationship feeling perfect? Is my apartment feeling perfect? Is, what around me is like good enough for making me happy? And then like, ultimately I realized, I was like, oh, the only thing that will truly make me happy is if I'm happy with myself. And being happy with yourself means accepting who you are and honoring like all the parts of you that are true. And I think I barely touched on this because it doesn't feel that relevant anymore, but even starting Friend of a Friend, the dating app, was me trying to be a different version of myself that I thought would maybe fit in more with what the business community deemed acceptable. Like, to me, doing like impact media for like youth and social change and culture and impact, like, that's what I love. But as I kind of was more in these business circles, it was like, oh, how do I build a tech company? And that's great, but that's not who I am. And so I would tell my younger self is just like, try all the things, but don't lose sight of your inner voice, because that is everything, and that is what guides you. So, yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. Thank you so much for highlighting that. I think that we often lose sight of what we truly want. And I think you really honed in on that throughout this presentation today. And so I think that ultimately we need to go back and reflect on what
Yeah.
we truly wanted in the past, like
Yeah.
in the past and even now, and then find that balance between them.
It's
And
balance.
so I feel that even what you said, writing down your dreams is really key to finding that, writing those thoughts down and then reflecting. And I think that really puts you in a mindset that allows you to think about the future. So, yeah.
And just honoring you as you are, I think, and I grew up in a pretty competitive environment, but I think also, now more than ever, I have a pretty strong sense of self, but I get still confused when I go on the internet or when I see people doing things. I'm like, I could be so many different versions of myself, or I could be so many different things in this world. But all that really matters is, like, are you being you? And so write it down, keep it somewhere close, and that's who you are.
Absolutely. All right. For our next question, reminder, GirlConners, please drop some questions in the chat. But for my next question, how do you manage work and a life balance?
I think it takes time, and I was talking to one of my friends about this last night, where we were reminiscing on our first jobs out of college, and kind of how traumatizing they were in some ways. And it was just that we hadn't been used to being in those certain work environments, and we took everything like so seriously. Managing work and balance, I'm still figuring that out. But I think make time for joy always. Like, sometimes, like tonight, so I'm going to take my own advice. I have to go meet up with some friends tonight, but I'm like, I'm so tired. I'd rather just like curl up and be alone in my room. And that's valid sometimes, but other times it's like, no, you have to choose joy. You have to choose community. You have to choose vibrancy. And there are some days where I'm more introverted than others. That's okay. But just remembering to, when you switch environments, you'll be in a different mode. And then something that I also wish I could do more often is like make sure you are nourishing yourself and like sleeping and eating and working out, and if that's something that you prioritize, because it's easy to open up Slack earlier if you want, but as soon as you do that, you kind of get stuck there. So on one side, take care of yourself the way that you would take care of others. Like, I love cooking for other people, and sometimes I have to remind myself, like, gotta cook for yourself. And then embrace moments of joy and community, because that is, in my mind, and I forget it, it is a different energy bucket in you. So don't let your work tired impact the rest of your life.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think sometimes we have to be selfish and prioritize ourselves sometimes, since we prioritize what's in front of us and what's to be done, like
Totally.
almost on a checklist. So, yeah, I think that we really need to take time for ourselves in that work-life balance. And then we also need to find time to do what we love, whether that be working out, journaling. And so I think taking the time to prioritize ourselves is really what's needed in a work-life balance, since work is a set amount of for a set amount of time, and so we also need a set amount of time for ourselves as well.
It's quite sad if you zoom out and I'm like, oh, I worked more than I walked this week. Obviously, I'm not going to walk for like 40 hours straight, but it's like this is something that you do every day, and what are the sacrifices that you're making? Holding a mirror to myself right now. And then, it's like the airplane saying, like, you put on your mask, secure your mask before you help secure others. And so that's something that I will always come back to, is you really got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. And that means showing up for your work as well.
Absolutely. All right. For my next question, how do you never mind. Who was your biggest role model growing up?
Well, I think the excuse me, OG person of influence that I looked up to was Anna Wintour, because she was this like icon, like who even today she's like this mystical being. But I think once I got to college, Elaine Welteroth of Teen Vogue was actually someone who was particularly influential to me, and I think that she made a lot of changes in the editorial world that I was also interested in. She made Teen Vogue like more activist, political, and focused on like what youth issues we're talking about. And I had the privilege of meeting her when I was a freshman in college, and I was like, how do I be you? And her answer was just like, trust the process. And so yeah, that's another thing. Even though I'm like, how do you want to get to where you are, just also know that like, trust the process. You will go where you are meant to.
Absolutely. I think trusting the process is really what's needed for every one of us. I think I just came out of the college application process, and so I think trusting the process is what's really necessary, since some things aren't meant to be, but things that are meant to be are meant to be.
Totally.
So we need to remind ourselves of that.
Yes.
And oops,
sorry.
You can go ahead.
What is for you will not go past you, and rejection is just redirection. I also didn't want to necessarily go to USC. I wanted to go to NYU. I like both were options, but USC was like ended up being more compelling for like financial reasons, and I went and I ultimately loved it, and I ended up living in New York anyway. So if you're having any version of thoughts in that same vein, so things happen for a reason.
Absolutely. I think knowing that USC and then NYU are on two different sides of the world, and knowing that you picked USC was, I think, the right decision for you. And so there's right decisions for everybody. And so I think really thinking about trusting that process is what's necessary, since what's meant for you is meant for you. And so, yeah, thank you so much for reminding us of that. I also used to be very interested in fashion as well. I also wanted to be Anna Wintour one day. But yeah, I think that's that we share.
She is so in her power and in her truth and what she's meant to do, and look at how many people she's inspired. And even if we no longer want to go down that path, it's can you aspire towards this sense of see, this is kind of contradictory to what I'm saying. I'm equal parts very like spiritual and big picture, and equal parts like be your best highest self and pursue excellence. And because I think if you're just being authentically you will impact so many people as well.
Absolutely. All right. And my final question for you today is, do you ever struggle with confidence or imposter syndrome, and how do you overcome it?
Yeah, I think so I'm in this weird moment where I feel quite confident right now, but it is because I went through so many moments of feeling like so insecure, so self-critical, lots of self-doubt, where like, and I feel super fine sharing like these very inner thoughts with you all because I think it's an important reflection. I was like so hard on myself that like anything I did was the expectation, not the reward. And so when I like got the Forbes 30 under 30, which I think to a younger version of myself is so cool, I looked at that and I'm like, well, it must have not been that hard to get if I could do it. And I say that because if you put a lot of pressure on yourself, and I'm sure many of you do, then it will translate into how you experience like the really nice fruits of the world as well. And so how have I overcome that is being able to kind of step back, and okay. So the imposter syndrome, I also wanted so many big things for myself that I felt like if I didn't have those, then I wasn't that yet. And then I also came up in a young person startup scene where, especially around some of my male friends, like we're raising millions of dollars. And I was like, well, my business or my, company that I started isn't doing that. So are we the same? And now I'm like, no, we're superheroes for doing different things. And so there's a lot of reckoning, like, what does success look like for me versus what does success look like for you? And I think redefining what success looked like for men, wow, what success looked like for me helped me resolve that imposter syndrome. And then another thing is now 4 or 5 years after graduating college, 8 years of working on something, I have the faith that I'm very hardworking and that will always speak for itself. And I'm curious and I want to learn new things. And I could show up to the table and not know anything, but I'm now coming to the table with a lot of information. And so at some point you will feel settled in your skills a little bit more. And I know I still have much more to go, but there's a deeper trust in self. Redefine success for what it is that you want and have a deep trust in yourself, and then nothing else will matter.
That was amazing. I absolutely agree. I feel like imposter syndrome really impacts us in different ways. I know that you had Gen Z and then you were pushed into the entrepreneurship and business sphere. And so I think that comparison really makes you feel a certain way. And I remember one time where I was pushed into an award ceremony. I didn't feel like I belonged there.
Yeah.
But regardless, things that happen to you are meant to happen to you.
Totally.
And everybody's just following their own paths. And so it was Gen Z, and then for them, it was entrepreneurship. And so there's just different things that people have to do for themselves and career professionally as well. But
speaking the wisdom to me now.
But yeah, thank you so much, Anushka, for coming in today. I absolutely loved speaking with you, and thank you so much about sharing how to rewrite your future.
Thank you so much for having me, and congrats to everyone again.
Thank you so much. All right, have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. And now the GirlCon team would like to share a final message.
Wow. Thank you, Anushka, for sharing that incredible story with us. Women like you inspire us to chase our dreams and maximize our impact. As we reflect on this year's planning period, the GirlCon board feels an immense pride for how we've innovated and adapted together as an organization. If you told me 8 years ago that I would be here at GirlCon's 8th annual event, I don't know if I would have believed you, but I'm so amazed. Each year, we find new ways to solve problems and meet the challenges of the time, like the pandemic in 2020, changing policies around DE&I this year, and the growth and rapid transformation of artificial intelligence to our everyday systems. This year, more than any other, has been defined by creative problem solving and bold adaptation. We've added new elements to our hybrid conference experience, pioneered new ways to deliver meaningful impact both in person and virtually, and expanded our reach through innovative approaches. In every area, we've embraced change and achieved remarkable growth through our willingness to adapt.
As we reflect on GirlCon's 8-year journey, certain people and organizations have made an immeasurable impact. We extend a special thank you to Ramona, Alex, and the entire ISACA Chicago team, the UIC team, including Elsa, plus all of our Google volunteers, as well as the entire CME group team. The magic that continues to live on would not be possible without the phenomenal dedication of our entire core team. Proud doesn't even begin to describe how we feel watching each and every one of you turn GirlCon's vision into our reality year after year. We are inspired, humbled, and grateful beyond words to our graduating seniors, Emma, Carissa, Morgan, Annie, and Zoe. We can't wait to see where your next chapter takes you and all the lives you will touch.
The empowerment, connection, and inspiration that unfolded here happened because of every brilliant person in the room today, and because we all embraced change and innovation together. We hope you'll continue championing GirlCon's mission and message everywhere you go as we keep evolving. Through your contributions to our community, whether that be introducing new speaker connections, reposting our posts on social media, or simply being present here with us as we evolve and expand year after year. We genuinely hope that you discovered something new and impactful at GirlCon 2025 Digital. And with that, I'm thrilled to hand things off to our core team for some final thoughts. Thank you for joining us for this transformative journey, and we're eager to discover what we'll build together in the future.
Thank you to the entire GirlCon board. Wow, these past 2 days have been incredible. I know I speak for all of us when I say that we're deeply grateful for each person's presence and enthusiasm throughout this conference. Since attending GirlCon for the first time as a sophomore, I've had the honor of serving on the organizing team for 3 years now. Working with such an amazing team and meeting inspiring attendees and speakers from around the world, including those joining from different time zones, has been life-changing. My GirlCon experience will stay with me wherever I go. Organizing this conference is no small feat, so please give a big round of applause for the entire GirlCon 2025 planning team. These past few months have been challenging, with late night and early morning FaceTime calls, thousands of emails, and schoolwork on top of everything else. But seeing your engagement, every comment and question in the chat, your Instagram stories and reposts, meeting you at networking events, makes it all worthwhile and fuels our passion to run GirlCon every single year.
Absolutely, Emma. These past 3 years on the GirlCon team have been incredible. I'm continuously honored to work alongside remarkable young women who constantly inspire me. One of GirlCon's most amazing aspects is that it is entirely run by teenagers. And while this sometimes presents challenges, our national team works tirelessly to make this week both possible and extraordinary. You all continually push me to be a better person and team member. To our attendees, I hope you were able to learn and grow this week, whether by meeting someone at a professional development session or learning how technology interacts with every field. I hope each of you learned something you'll carry forward after this conference. I can't wait to see GirlCon's future and am grateful for everything I've learned while being a part of this team.
Thank you, Kritika. Now for our speakers. Thank you to Rebecca Willett and Anuksha Joshi for sharing your stories with all of GirlCon Digital. These powerful women are shaping the lives and the generation of female leaders. All our keynote speakers have inspired us beyond words. Your advice, guidance, and inspiration have empowered thousands of girls worldwide. Thank you for taking the time to share your stories and leaving our GirlCon 2025 attendees and team in awe, making this our best conference yet. I also want to thank all the speakers who led breakout sessions. Your guidance and insights have empowered our attendees to fearlessly pursue their passions. Now, a final shout out to our design, public relations, logistics, and sponsorship team members for dedicating so much time to GirlCon throughout the past year. You're all amazing, and we're grateful for the hard work you put into every task. You're role models for young girls everywhere, and we couldn't have chosen better people to run GirlCon alongside us. We'd also like to thank our wonderful ambassadors for supporting and sharing this initiative and incredible team on a global scale.
Beyond these 2 days of GirlCon Virtual, there are many ways to stay involved with us year-round. The easiest way to stay connected is through our Instagram account, @GirlConTech, where we host engaging Instagram lives, account takeovers, and share informative posts. We also send monthly newsletters with GirlCon updates and exciting opportunities from our sponsors and speakers. You can figure out how to sign up on our website, girlcon.org.
Lastly, we would love to have many of you as GirlCon team members. Applications for our core, national, and ambassador teams go live in late October. So please make sure to check out our Instagram page, @GirlConTech, and your email opt-in for more information on how to apply. We hope GirlCon has given you meaningful connections and empowering knowledge. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we look forward to seeing some of you at GirlCon Chicago and the rest of you next year at GirlCon Digital.